Welcome to Invisible Strings, where we tug at the little threads that hold our lives together. From mental health and relationships to marriage, motherhood, and all the beautiful chaos in between. I'm Katie, your guide to navigating life's tangled web, one string at a time. Think of this as your weekly dose of insight, sprinkled with a bit of laughter, some heartfelt chats, and maybe even a happy tear or two. So, whether you're juggling a million things or you just need a break, let's untangle life together, because those invisible strings, they're what keep us connected. This is Invisible Strings. Let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to Invisible Strings. I'm your host, Katie, and today is a really special episode because I have a very special guest joining me, my amazing husband, Brad. Yay! Before we dive into today's conversation, let me just start by saying that Brad is probably the funniest person I've ever met. Definitely the most sarcastic. And he is always keeping people laughing in our house. That's for sure. He is good at lightening the mood. But more than that, he is one of the most dedicated and loving dads and husbands I could ask for. I admire him so much and especially admire him facing his own challenges with mental health. And he's worked really hard to understand himself better and to make himself better for our kids and for myself, and most importantly, for God. I'm just really grateful that he has chosen our family. He's chosen God. He's chosen me, and he's chosen himself to really break the generational curses that has plagued his family for a long time. And the ball stops here. Like, we are not allowing that kind of behavior to go any further than Brad. So today is going to be a really real, honest conversation. It is hard to talk about mental health as a female. It's even harder to talk about mental health as a male. There's not a lot of opportunity for guys to talk about it. And I think it's really important that we shine some light onto mental health in men so that we can create environments where they can feel comfortable talking about what's going on. Today, we're going to have a real honest talk about what it means to grow up with a narcissistic parent, how that shapes your view of yourself, and really how Brad has worked to break that cycle for our family. And I know a lot of you will be able to relate to this, whether you faced similar experiences or someone that you love has. And I'm just very excited to just bring some light to mental health and men, and creating environments in your home that will help them to be the best versions of themselves. And I'm really excited to get started. So let's go. Let's get started. All right, Brad. Well, welcome to Invisible Strings. I'm so glad that you're here.
So happy to be here.
So happy that you decided to come upstairs and be on my podcast for the third time. Yep. This has been an interesting one to get out to you guys. If you do typically listen on Fridays at 10 a.m., it's currently 1:10 p.m. on Friday. So this podcast has been recorded a few times now. And every time something different has happened and it hasn't been able to be edited or sent out. We finished this whole thing yesterday. And last night I came home and was starting to edit it and realized that there was no sound, even though we had all of our stuff. Everything was turned on, everything was ready and working. So we are excited to finally be here and getting to put this podcast out for everyone to hear a little bit later than normal, but that's okay. So I think before we get into the meat of this conversation, everybody needs to know a little bit more about you. So can you introduce yourself and maybe tell everyone how you grew up, where you are from?
Yes, my name's Brad. I grew up in suburbs of Chicago, born until we moved down here 8 years ago. I grew up in a house with my parents and two brothers. My dad had four brothers, my mom had a sister, and everyone for most of that time lived within a half an hour of us. So growing up, it was a lot of family, cousins, family parties. I grew up uh, playing the family sport of basketball.
Families. What does that mean?
Yeah,
Family sport of basketball.
just about everyone was pushed to play basketball because it was a safe sport that everyone played. I had two uncles that were exceptional at basketball, and they both went on to play in college and um, have a handful of NCAA championships.
Cool.
Um, so it was fun. Everyone supported it and was there. One of the uncles was at every single basketball game as a kid growing up, and then all the way through college. That was that. I ended up falling in love with guitar, played guitar for a good part of my childhood, and then got a full scholarship to play basketball in college. Um,
And you guys also went to a
we
championship.
made it to the national tournament and made it to the Final Four. So a really close run for a school that had never won a conference playoff game. So it was quite a feat for that team, that school. Um, and the best part about it was meeting you at college.
I met you, re-met you, second semester of our freshman year.
Yep.
Yeah. Brad and I met the first night of freshman year of college, and we were introduced and were not excited about each other
No.
at the time. But I think one of the things you talked about your family, you talked about how big your family was and how everybody lived around you. And I remember being in college and coming to the basketball games and being like half the gym. Like I said, we had a really small school, and half the gym was like filled with the Gierkes and friends and cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents. And I just thought, that's so cool. Like, we have a big family, but nobody ever lived by us. My grandparents never lived by us, aunts and uncles, like one aunt and uncle lived by us. And I had very little cousins when I got older, but I just thought that is so cool to me. And that was one of the things that I was like most attracted to. I mean, other than your amazing looks and your crazy awesome personality. I was really thought the family part of it, the family aspect of your life was really neat. And Brad and I were friends for 4 years before we were ever romantically involved with each other. So all 4 years of college we were like best friends. So I did hang out with him a lot at his house as his friend. Um, his grandparents didn't think we were all just friends, but everyone else did. But his grandmother, both of his grandmothers were like, "We know you're not just friends, Katie." And I'm like, "Talk to your grandson. I would love to be more than just friends." So I got to hang out with them a lot and really, 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 really loved your family and thought they also really loved me. Most of them did.
Yeah.
Um, so family was something that was really important to you growing up. And you were so lucky to have so many good influences around you while you were, in some of your most important ages. Um, tell me a fact that nobody knows about you that would be pretty cool.
I carried the Olympic torch in 1996.
How did you get to carry the torch in 1996?
My grandmother, one of her hobbies became filling out entry forms in grocery stores. It was kind of for my grandfather's thing to do is, for one, go around and see how much they could buy for how little, and then also grab entry forms. And she would always follow the rules. If it was 5 entries per person, she would grab a book of 100 entries and fill out one for every aunt, uncle, and grandchild, to win that contest. And she won a lot of things over the years. And this one was through Coca-Cola. It was, you had to submit an essay and mail it in on nominating someone to carry the Olympic torch. So she obviously did all the grandchildren, and mine got picked out, and I got to carry the Olympic torch in DeMont, Indiana. That was when I was in 7th grade, 8th grade, maybe. Yeah,
That was really cool.
it was fun. It was something I'll never forget.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who's ever carried the Olympic torch ever, other than Olympic athletes.
Yeah, famous people,
Yeah,
but you don't
not
really.
even that. Like that
Yeah.
that was such a cool. And let's set the scene for a second about Brad's grandmother. Um, Grandma Kay lived in a little Chicago bungalow, like all brick, and she had 5 boys. 5, and they are all like very tall, big boys.
Yep.
With 3 bedrooms?
3 bedrooms.
You guys,
Yeah, tiny kitchen.
1,400 square feet, maybe? Maybe?
Maybe if you included the basement, yeah.
Okay, so she's like the ultimate. Like she is like ultimate goals of just being completely dedicated to her family and just loving everybody. She was definitely a beautiful Christian woman, and um she had 5 boys and in this tiny little house, and everyone was always happy. Everyone just always, the memories that all your uncles will talk about were beautiful. They're beautiful memories. And she would have everyone to her house on Sundays, right after church,
Yep.
in her little house. And how many cousins are there?
13 cousins.
Okay, like total with your brothers and stuff. And then 5 boys and then all their spouses, and everyone would go to their house and have dinner in the basement, right?
Yep.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday. You don't see it. I feel like maybe you're seeing it more again now, where people are living closer to family, and family is important again. It feels like we're coming back around to that, which
Yeah.
is really great. Tell us like 1 or 2 of your favorite dad jokes.
I was always been really good at math, so my 2 classics are based around math, and that would be, why is 6 afraid of 7?
Why, Brad?
Because 7, 8, 9. And what did the acorn say when it was all grown up?
What?
Gee, I'm a tree.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where was that one from?
Both of those are from my uncles.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, a party with the Gierke boys is hilarious always, all the time. All the time. There's always games, there's always fun. It's always so much fun. Okay, one more question before we get into some other stuff. Can you describe our family dynamic in 3 words? What would it be?
Fun.
We are fun.
Yep. Loving and caring. And I think that is how we are in the house and try to be in the house. And that's how I see the kids going out into the world with their friends. Is they have fun, they love their friends, and they care about their friends and other people that they just meet.
Yeah. They have good hearts.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of us. I am excited. We're going to dive into childhood reflections and what it looked like growing up in your house with your dad, who is narcissistic. But can you tell me a little bit about your childhood and what it was like growing up in a home with a father who was struggling with narcissism?
I didn't know anything about it growing up. I just thought it was regular, normal life. We had fun, did things as a family. So until I got older, I just thought it was a normal childhood. And that's really all. I mean, I obviously knew there were times where people were sad and I was sad at times and frustrated, but didn't realize what that was all about until I got older and we had a family. I started seeing things come out and act certain ways when we got married and started having kids.
So looking back, were there moments that have stood out to you as examples of an unhealthy dynamic in your family?
Yeah, um, there's a lot. I probably didn't even realize it until the time where I left the family business. I remember my aunt coming to me and saying, "We have been praying that one of the boys would get out and just not be part of that. And we honestly never thought it was going to be you, but we are so happy that you were strong enough to get out." And that was probably like one of the starting moment for me, like being like, what was I going through? Like, what
Like, what did
was
you
it?
miss?
Yeah.
Like, how did you miss all this?
Yeah, it's just been reflection over the years, like, especially noticing stuff once we had kids and thinking back. I think there was a lot of fear from my dad. So certain things were like, no, you can't do that. You can't play a different sport than basketball. Um,
Because of why? Because there were stories of
because someone they knew got hit in the heart with the baseball and he had died. All my uncles' knees were in bad shape from playing football in high school. And it was just like, you're not going to play those sports, you can play basketball. And it was just like pushed. I signed up. I was like adamant. I wanted to play soccer. I thought soccer was so fun. All the kids played it at school. Everyone at school is like, "Oh my gosh, you should play soccer. It's like you're really good at it." And finally got my parents to agree to sign me up for soccer. And they're like, "You're not going to do basketball." I'm like, "Cool. I won't do basketball this year. I want to try soccer." A week before the first practice, I had told someone "F you"
mhm.
and used the actual words. A neighbor heard it and told my parents. My dad's like, "That's it. You're not doing soccer."
Did you do basketball that year?
I did do basketball that year.
Okay.
I also had to write like 100 times on a piece of paper. I used, I said "F you," "I'm sorry, I'll never do it again," and um, address it to my grandparents. And what I thought my dad was doing was sticking it in the mailbox. Like I had to drive with my dad to the blue mailbox, and he got out of the car, and I thought he was putting it in the mail. So like I was deathly afraid of what my grandparents thought of me.
Yeah.
For a long time after that. They never said anything to me, and I never said anything either. But
He was shaming you
yeah, and
as a little child.
that really, I feel like,
Could you imagine doing that to our I could never imagine doing that to my child.
no, absolutely not.
I think that as parents, you do what you learn. And so I think that the fear based parenting was probably something that he learned. And he didn't have the tools, but you can only make excuses for people until you can't. And like as an adult, you can make the decision to stay exactly how you are, or you can change and change, reflect on yourself and see the things that you've done wrong, and then change moving forward for to better yourself and to better your children and your children's children and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that's where like the ball stopped with you, because you were like, I'll never parent this way. I'll never parent the way my parents parented. One of the things that I saw with you was that your dad was like completely off the rail. I mean, he never scared me, but he scared you as a child, and he's scared a lot of people. He's very big and he's very loud and he's aggressive. And I think that he used that to intimidate people, whether it was his children, his wife, or people that did business with him. What I saw in you was that you were going to be the complete opposite of him. So where you're so calm and cool and laid back, you're complete opposite. And I remember thinking at one point, I think we only had the girls. I was thinking a lot and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like you're the complete opposite of your dad. You wanted to be so you wanted to be you didn't want to have any sort of connection to his behavior, that you went the complete opposite direction, which is also not good
Right.
because you're still feeling the things and you're still feeling the anxiety. You were so good at like stuffing that away because you didn't want to be him. You didn't want to even look like him. That was kind of where we started realizing that there was an issue. Like you were feeling like there was an issue because you didn't give yourself a voice either. Because you thought like if you disagreed with anything, then you'd be like your dad. Or if you got loud, you'd be like your dad. Or, right?
Yep.
Like you had talked to me about that. How did you feel when you realized that that was what was happening?
Yeah. It was really overwhelming, just because there was so much like stuff that I was doing to try not to be like him. Probably was too far one way, and but there was still stuff that I was doing that I learned that wasn't great. The more and more I started digging into it and realizing it was just like almost paralyzing at some points.
It's like you can't do anything then.
Yeah,
You're like, I don't know how to fix this.
I'd rather just not do anything, try and live quiet, and mindless.
I think God called you for something greater though. So that's why you haven't been able to continue to ignore it. What were some of the challenges that you faced as a kid because of these unhealthy dynamics at home?
It's like we walked on eggshells a lot of the time, just because you never knew what type of mood my dad was going to be in when he got home. If it was a good day at work, um, nothing went wrong, then it was a great day. Like everything was good, but like we didn't know what that was going to be until he got
Yeah.
home. Just trying to make sure anything he would ever call out for us, like, your room's a mess, your bathroom's a mess, you need to do this, I asked you to do this. Making sure all that stuff was done, because if he wasn't in a good mood, it would just be like another thing he could go off on at us for. So
Right.
I remember like getting a good grade on a math test. I was good at math. I wouldn't A lot of times I would just wouldn't even tell him if I got a good grade,
Yeah.
because then it might come up with more questions and be like, "Oh, well, you had a, spelling test or, social studies test. How do you do on that one?" And never did good on those. So why bring up something good and start a conversation when he might dig in and find something that I didn't do good? So I just wouldn't share that information most of the time.
I feel like that's where you started to just not talk about how you were feeling and things that were even good for you because you were so used to your good things not even being good enough that that spilled into our marriage too.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't really talk about anything. Like, how are you feeling? What's going on? I'm good. Everything's good. Work was great.
Yeah.
N- Yeah. And so I definitely think that that was one of the things that made it hard to get deeper into our marriage, was because you were always just trying to really protect yourself from, like, basically you're like healing this little boy inside of you that has been so um hurt, and it's still something that you're healing. I mean, it's still something that, I mean, your poor dad. I mean, I do. I feel so bad for him too because he is this like old man now and he's still a little boy and he's never healed that little boy. Maybe he has. I have no idea, but to get to the age of 70 years old and to still be um not able to self-reflect has to be pretty paralyzing
Yeah.
and debilitating. And
And you have to isolate yourself from people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they never had friends. Like nobody, like there was no trust. I think that
Yeah.
that's one of the things that they talk a lot about with narcissists is that they trust nobody. They they isolate themselves except for their family, really. And so that control piece, which you've never been controlling ever, that's why your circle is small. Because if your circle is small, then you can control what's going on. And I think that that is what we'll go into next when we talk about what happened with us and us, you know, getting married and how everything kind of fell apart from there. I think that when it became super apparent for you was the fact that we were best friends for 4 years in college, and I did come to like, your mom called me, and we weren't even dating, and she's like, "Hey, we're opening up the airport parking lot. Do you wanna come and surprise Brad?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I do." And, I was invited to family parties, so when you proposed to me, I was obviously very surprised, and tell me or tell everybody why we were best friends for so long and why like just that process and why it had to be quiet for as long as it had to be quiet.
Well, it was any one of the brothers that had a girlfriend. There'd be a lot of teasing, which is one thing. Like, you can get over it. Sometimes it gets super annoying. I tease people. It definitely gets annoying. Uh, and it was always like if you didn't do something right, it was because you're spending too much time with a girlfriend. If you weren't spending so much time with a girlfriend, maybe you would have remembered to do this like you were supposed to do, or you know,
It was just another control. I can control you by this with
right?
this.
Yep.
And even when we were talking, even when we were just friends, I'd gotten you that I was so excited and I'd gotten you those tickets to the Indianapolis 500. And I secretly was freaking out because you were insistent on us flying. And at that time, I was terrified to fly. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And the amount of anxiety I had, I just thought we were going to drive there. And you're like, no, we have to fly because I'm working 120 hours a week for my parents. And there's not enough time to drive. Like, we have to fly.
Yeah. Which
And
really made no sense.
no,
But yeah.
no, because it actually took longer to
Yeah.
fly, but that's okay. Um, and I remember like a couple nights before, somebody at the airport flipped a car or something, one of the people that
Yeah.
were working for you guys. And because that happened, you are no longer able to go to the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that was probably what was going to happen anyways. Like when you were a little boy and you played soccer, and like because that wasn't involving your father or it wasn't something he was passionate about, he made sure that it wasn't going to actually happen.
It's the same thing with my guitar. I was playing classical guitar at the Suzuki School of Music and got invited with a couple other guitarists and a bunch of violinists to play
Mhm.
for the Pope.
Yep.
And it was something school was invited to do every year, but you had to be selected by the school. My parents were like, well, your brothers weren't invited to do it, so you can't go. My brothers don't play instruments. How could they be invited to go? It made no sense. It was just coming up with something to not have to have the fear of me going over there and doing something that he was uncomfortable.
When you ended up telling me one night, I love you, said it back so quickly because I had felt it for so long. And the next day you called and you were like, "You do know I'm gonna marry you, right?" And I was like, "I don't even know," like, it's like you had known all this the whole time, but you never told me. Like, I didn't know. Like, I never knew. I think that that was one of the things, like, you think about a lot of things and you feel a lot of things, but you have a hard time talking about them.
Yeah.
Like, your feelings are, like, so or have been so difficult for you to talk about. Why do you think it's so hard? Because do you think that because you were never heard. You were never heard, your feelings
Yeah.
didn't matter, you weren't validated.
Wasn't really allowed to have ideas. It was kind of like just whatever my dad thought is what we were supposed to think.
Mhm.
And it just feels like he spent our whole younger lives trying to get us to think like he would think, right?
Right.
I mean, that goes back to the basketball court in the vacation house. It was like a trick in how to get us to think like him.
Yeah.
It was just a bunch of games, and that's what we were,
Manipulation.
yeah, expected to not think for ourselves.
I think that goes back to college also because I definitely feel like you were your dad's favorite, like by far. He thought that you were the most like him. You were always with him at work. You loved it. And even your aunts and uncles would talk about how, like, we thought for sure, like, if anyone was going to stay in the business, it was going to be Brad. You know how to do everything in a car now, a truck, because of all the stuff that he's taught you. I remember you telling me when we were in college, like, you were like, I wasn't even going to go to college. I was just going to work for my dad. And I was like, you weren't going to go to college because you were going to work for your dad? And you're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, but like, what if that didn't work out? You're like, why would it not work out? I'm like, I don't know. Just anything can happen. You didn't want to go to college. And you're like, no, I didn't want to go to college. And I don't think that's true. I don't think that you didn't want to go to college. I think that he'd always told you he didn't finish college. And look at him. He has tons and tons of money and he didn't have to finish college. And like, that wasn't a secret. I mean, like, I remember at our engagement party, he said that to my mom. He's like, I'm more successful than all of my brothers, and I didn't even finish college, which is just like, again, like, that's such a sad, insecure little boy
Yeah,
that has to say that at an engagement party for us that we weren't even at
right.
because they needed to be on time and we were late to our engagement party at my parents' house. Oh my gosh. So I think that, again, like, specifically you, though, which is funny because you're the only one that left, but specifically you needed to not go to college because if you didn't go to college, guess what would have happened? He would have thought for sure you could do nothing else
Right. Yeah.
because no one else is going to love you like he does, and no one else will take care of you the way he does. I think when you decided that you no longer were going to stand for the mental and emotional abuse at the hands of your dad, I just remember you were so exhausted from trying to continue to be this perfect person that was impossible to be because the expectations were always so high that you would never meet them. And I remember you coming home one night and you were crying and I was like, "What is going on? I hate this so much." And I'm like, well, you don't have to do this. Of course we're young. We're like 22 years old and you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this job anymore. Like you can do something else. What do you want to do? I want to be a trader. Okay, great. Like I know a million people down at the board of trade. You could be a trader. And you're like, I can?
Yeah.
And it was like, you never thought different from what your dad showed you or taught you, even though you were like a full grown man that could have your own views and opinions. And you're like, so like I don't have to work for my parents, for my dad. I'm like, well, you can do that if you want to, or you can do something else. And you're like, let's do something else.
Yeah.
And like within like a few days, you had a job down at the Chicago Board of Trade, and it was the most amazing experience. And of course, you've left that and went into sales, but here you are trading again all by yourself. That's probably why he wasn't excited about you getting married. is because I was raised so differently from you in terms of like when we were upset about something, we screamed and yelled about it, which is also not healthy. But I I also was never talked to the way that you were talked to. I feel like that was the point where you finally were like, okay, I I can do something else. I can do something else. I can be somebody else. I can um like I can do it. And um you did. You did. You broke away. You did it. I don't think that the magnitude of what happened after you decided to leave the family business, like I don't think that you thought that you'd be like disowned from your family. And thankfully, it was just your mom and dad and your brothers and not the rest of your family. Like, I think that gave us a lot of validation that we were not wrong in the situation. And you were just trying to live like a normal life that was healthy. And I think that I am so grateful for your aunts and uncles and your grandparents and stuff like that because they all came up aside you and really supported you and helped you um, try to unweave this crazy web of untruths that were told to you
Yeah,
all throughout your childhood.
yeah. I mean, my aunts and uncles and your family were a huge part of it. Like, I'd never heard, "I'm so proud of you and what you've done," more from our support system than I'd ever heard from my dad.
Yeah, that's really sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad for him too because again, like I said, like there is a broken little boy inside of him that has never healed his own traumas. One of the things that I admire most about you is how intentional you are as a dad. You show up for the kids all the time. You take them to everything. You're never missed anything. If you've been in town, you have been at every single game, dance recital, everything that they've ever done, and have always loved and supported them. And, you know, you have always told them how proud you are of them. Always. That's never been um, something that you were lacking. How do you think that your experience with your father shaped the kind of dad you want to be or you've wanted to be?
Um, I just, reflecting back and seeing stuff, I just realized was what I wish was there, and I just try and pay more attention to that.
Yeah.
Um, and probably overdo it sometimes, but
Can't have too much love.
yeah.
Do you think that there's like specific things that you do differently because of what you went through?
Yeah, I have never pushed the kids to play basketball. I love basketball. I still enjoy playing it. I love watching it. But I really love to see how everyone has gone and done their own thing and have excelled at it.
Yeah.
Um,
Like the little boy in you is Jack.
yeah, playing soccer.
Like killing it at
I
soccer.
mean, William played baseball and now
Mhm.
he's going to do football. And I had
Mhm.
always wanted to play baseball, or at least try it, because we'd always play wiffle ball all the time. Like,
And they wanted you on that football team in high school.
yeah.
So bad. You're like, "Don't even talk to my dad about it. He's gonna
Yeah,
absolutely say no.
don't even have that conversation.
Don't."
Um, yeah, so I that's been kind of like doing things the opposite, right?
Yeah. Yeah, in a really good way. Tell me what are some of the moments as a dad that have made you the proudest?
Probably just seeing our kids from a distance, treating others with love and kindness, and not just doing it naturally, caring for other people, whether they're hurt or sad, um, and just being really great friends to their friends as well.
Yeah.
I've never heard friends, like the girls and their friends, all say "I love you" to each other. I'm like,
Yeah.
It's like unheard of. The girls bringing friends to church.
Yeah.
I'm proud that they're doing what we do, but do it better.
Yeah. And that brings us to church, because that was something that you were able to go to sometimes, but your dad wasn't, that wasn't something that was important to him.
No, it was once you reached confirmation and did confirmation, you then had the opportunity to go to work with him on Sunday and make money, or you could go to church and not make money. It was your choice. So, as a, I don't know what confirmation was,
8th grade.
14-year-old,
Yeah.
do you want to have money or do you want to go to church? I'm like, yeah, I want money.
Mhm. Could you imagine saying that to our kids?
No, never.
Oh my gosh. So as you know, growing up doesn't just make everything that has happened to disappear. It doesn't just go away. You have to like figure it out, and sometimes it comes out in ways that you're not expecting and in feelings that you've never had before. And I know that there was a point in the last 2 years where you started to feel some mental health issues that you weren't able to continue to push down and push away. And I think that's where your discovery of what had happened to you growing up had started to surface. I know that when you left your family's business and your dad basically said, like, you're gone. Um, my mom had said is, Brad needs to see a therapist. Like, this stuff isn't this all this stuff that has happened is not normal. And like, he needs to see a therapist. There's no way that he can like figure this out by himself. And you were not in a place at all where you were like, yeah, I definitely need to see a therapist. You're like, no, I'm fine. I'm so happy I'm gone. Like, I don't have, no one can like control me anymore. I'm so happy I'm gone. And you didn't see a therapist. And I kept being like, maybe you need to see a therapist every couple of years. And you're like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. But finally, like 3 years ago, you were like, um, yeah, I think I need to see a therapist now.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you have been able to uncover a lot of things. Um, when did you first realize, like, what was it when you first realized that you were struggling with anxiety and depression?
Um, it was around the time when I had got laid off from Signode. I was already saw the company going in not a healthy direction, like financially. And I started looking for a job,
Yeah.
and then maybe like a month and a half into that, they had hired a consultant agency to tell them how much to pay people severance and for how many years they'd been at the company. And I was the newest person in the Southeast Territory. So, only being there just under 4 years, I was laid off. And based on my um, performance and everything like that, had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And that was something that um, I knew was coming. I didn't think it would, I thought it would be based off of performance, but it wasn't. And that was like just mind messed with my mind
Yeah.
head. And it really, really brought me to my knees. Like I had a job in 3 weeks, but still it was like, couldn't believe that something like that could happen.
Did you feel like any of those feelings coming back up? Like, I remember when you were leaving, your dad said, you're going to be you're going to be nothing. You're not going to be able to do anything without me.
Yeah.
You're going to amount to nothing.
Yeah. I mean, that all came back into my head. Like, there's obviously like safety in owning your own business. That can happen to you. And, you know,
When you own your own business.
I just thought you do good, you do your best,
Mhm.
and you succeed, and you're safe at a company. And
Yeah.
that wasn't the case.
So when you were, I remember maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you had been, you'd been seeing a therapist. And they had mentioned that they thought that you actually you I don't think you had been struggling yet with any sort of anxiety or depression, but you were saying that you were really you were talking to the therapist said, "I think that you actually have ADD." And you're like, "Oh, that's crazy because, I remember hearing that when I was a kid that teachers kept telling my parents that you should get Brad tested. He has ADD and they wouldn't do it. Fear-based whatever." And she prescribed ADD medication for you. And I remember you calling me and being like crying because you had taken the medication and you were like, "Wow, it's like the curtains have been removed from my eyes and I can see everything so differently now." And it was amazing.
Yeah.
And so you were taking that for a couple of years and and it had been very helpful for you and helped you concentrate and you're motivated. But then I think at one point that medication started making you feel anxious.
Mhm.
Um, and that takes us to the new therapist that you started seeing, who you're like, lost your job, got a new job, but still like you were still off from that hit. And she had said, you should start taking medicine for anxiety,
Yeah.
right? And
She's like, should I can't prescribe medicine, but like I think it'd be worth talking to your primary care provider about it. Um, just to, a little bit of something to help
whatever this is all of a
smooth
sudden.
smooth things out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you had not struggled, or maybe you didn't talk about struggling with anxiety in the past, but do you think you've just struggled with anxiety your whole life?
Um, yeah, I think and I think everyone does. It's when it doesn't go away. So I'm sure there were periods of my life where I was anxious for long periods, and probably because I wasn't given the tools on how to talk about stuff. And I think most of my anxiety comes from the unknown, like not talking about things and not knowing what's going to happen. Um, and then not being able to talk about that fear,
Yeah.
and talk it through with someone to be like, okay, yeah, but what about this or this? Like
Mhm.
growing up with my dad, it was always like, think about the worst that could happen.
Yeah.
And it was always like, worst case scenario, this happens. But
Mhm.
like, never always were thinking about the positives all the time.
Yeah. Um, so you ended up starting to take medication for anxiety and depression, Wellbutrin,
Yep.
and quickly realized that Wellbutrin was not the right thing for you.
Yeah.
And talk about like this depression, this anxiety that kind of turned into a depression that got kind of scary quickly.
Yeah. I was taking Wellbutrin, I'm like, I'm don't feel like my old self, but feels like I feel better. She's like, well, we can try raising up your dose. We'll give that a shot. This was like 3 weeks in. Raised up the dose and I feel like everything just went the opposite way. We were getting ready to go to the beach and it was like getting everything ready. Like, it was like, we need to get out of the house, get going, and like take care of everything at the house so we can get out of the house. So it just seems like we were running different directions. There was no communication between us,
No.
like trying to get things done. So like we got in an argument and um and then I was just like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of this house. I'm just gonna go start packing up the car with whatever's ready. And I was looking in the garage and I'm like, maybe everyone would just be better off without me. Not that I wanted to kill myself, but I'm like, what if this garage door falls on me and I die? And how would they be? They'd probably be good without me. They got life insurance, they got you, they won't have like my emotional swings, like trying to figure things out. Um and I just remember getting in the car and sitting down and just crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I look up and one of the kids is outside and I see them turn around and run inside. And they went up to you and like, Dad is crying in the car. And you're like, what are you doing crying in the car? So I come inside. I'm like, I just told you what had happened.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's going on. This is how I feel.
Yeah. Which was crazy because you, A, don't ever cry, and B, talk about how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Even though I feel like that's like the root of so many of our fights or arguments is like, what is going on? Tell me how you're feeling. What is like, I don't know how to, I don't know how to break down this wall that has been built up to protect yourself. We had a friend come in that weekend who was a doctor actually. And so she was at the airport. You had just dropped her off. And I called her and I'm like, Amanda, like, something's not right. And she's like, he needs to get off that medicine. It's not working for him. And medicine's great. Like there's a place and time for it for anybody who needs it. And we're definitely not saying don't take medicine. It's, it's a, you don't always know how you're going to react to it. So it's important that if you do take medication, you're around people that know who you are and know what you typically are acting like. And so you weaned yourself off of that pretty quickly. And you kind of went more the natural route because you also weren't sleeping. And so I think from there you started taking CBD
Mm-hmm.
and working out and um like CBD gummies and also like an oil or something like that, like full spectrum, like
Yeah.
actual CBD. And it has changed a lot for you.
Yeah. It definitely got me feeling the best I had felt in a while and like on the right path,
Mm. And eating the right foods.
eating the right foods. Yeah, definitely fueling myself the right way to allow my body to um, be as normal as possible.
Those are probably the tools that have been like the most helpful unfortunate for you, right?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, like with mental health, there's like the aspect of why am I feeling this way? Why is my brain reacting this way? Also, how can I feel better? And trying to figure out like, am I going to do the medicine? Am I going to do more holistic? Am I going to work out? Like, what are the things I need to do? And so there's a lot of thought that goes into it when you're trying to heal. And that was like 38 years of kind of peeling back the onion to figure out what you needed so that you could move forward and release the things that have happened in the past and then um, make changes so these kinds of things don't carry on in our kids. You've done a really good job of like teaching the boys how to speak about their feelings and emotions and to talk about how they're feeling. And I think William is probably like the most like you. And you've worked really hard with him. And you were saying yesterday something about how he would get really upset and say mean things and then come back, like
Half hour later, and
apologize.
you're like, yeah, I'm really sorry I said that to you. It wasn't nice.
Yeah. And I think that's the best thing that we can do for our kids at this point is to keep them in the loop and speak to them like they're humans and let them know that their feelings are real and that they're seen and that they're heard and that they matter. And that's
And that they're allowed to have feelings. Like, I would not have been allowed to say something like that to my parents, or I would just be like, you're grounded in your room for a
forever.
month.
Yeah, right.
Like, once I got grounded for a whole summer, because I got a D in spelling in sixth grade. And like, yeah, like you are allowed to have those feelings. You're allowed to say that. But what you need to do is come back and recognize what you did and come back and apologize for it.
And it's not even like you have to do that because we've never said that. It's
Right.
just the fact that they feel like they want to do that.
Right.
Like they don't
Well,
feel good for saying hurtful things and mean things, and they do it to each other too.
Yeah.
Like, they apologize to each other without anyone having to prompt them to apologize to each other. And that's not like, we're not like patting ourselves on the back. Like, that's something that we did. But I think it's just being very vulnerable as parents and as humans, and that we see them as people. They are, they're not just people. Like Sarah Lynn said the other day, these are souls that are going to be living on for eternity. And our job is enormous and weighty. And, you know,
Yep.
it doesn't just end at Olivia, Whitney, William, and Jack. I mean, it goes on to all of the people that they marry, and then the kids that they have, and on and on. And then the generations to come. It's like incredibly important. And it really is, us reflecting on ourselves is kingdom work.
Yeah. I mean, I really think it's coming from a narcissist who is trying to control what you do to not controlling what the kids do, allowing them to have feelings, allowing them to have emotions, but showing them what is hurtful and what isn't, and how to then respond after that happens, because they're going to get in situations where they can't control their emotions, and they're going to have to go back
Yeah.
and figure that out. And
They need the tools.
there is no such thing as a perfect person.
No, not at all. So I think that is probably the thing that you have done that is so different from the experience that you had as a child. Let's say there's someone out here listening to this and they've gone through the same kind of experience you've gone through. What is like a good way for them to start healing? Like, what do you think the first thing that someone who maybe is listening to this and really relating to you, and you know grew up similar to the way that you grew up, what would you say to them? Like, what's the first step?
First step that took me a while to realize, which would have been a good first step, is to realize that you're never going to be perfect, and it's not going to be easy or correct itself right away. Like, it will never correct itself. You're just going to realize the right way, and you're going to have to go back and be like, well, I did that wrong, and this is how I should have done it. It's a lot of self-reflection, a lot of asking for forgiveness, and I think just a strong support team that will sit down and allow you to reflect and help you realize when you're not.
Brad, I am really thankful for you, and I'm thankful that you came on the show and talked about your experience. It's not easy. I think it's definitely part of the healing process. And people will hear this and will be able to relate so much to it, whether they're a man or a woman. And wives will be able to listen if their husbands have had similar experiences, and really be able to maybe have a little bit more grace or a little bit more empathy for them, because it's really hard. I mean, it's hard to watch somebody go through what you've gone through. It's hard because I see so much wrong in what has happened to you, and it makes me so angry that um, somebody could treat their child the way that you've been treated. And I think that a lot of people, this will resonate with a lot of people. Like, everyone's story can be someone else's survival guide. I think that you're incredibly brave. You're very funny. You're endlessly loving. And I know that your story is going to touch people and will resonate. And I'm just very proud of you.
Thank you.
Yep. Our listeners, thank you for being here. If something that I've said today that we've talked about resonates with you, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message, share this episode, or let us know your thoughts. And as always, remember, we are all connected by invisible strings, holding each other up in ways we may not ever realize. Until next time, take care of yourself and those you love.
Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Invisible Strings, where we've tugged at a few threads and hopefully left you with a smile and something to think about. Remember, life's connections might be invisible, but they're oh so strong. If you enjoyed today's chat, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little string pulling in their life. Until next time, keep those invisible strings intact, and I'll see you back here soon for more heartfelt conversations and a dash of fun. Stay connected, stay kind, and keep untangling.